Welcome to the future of approval workflows, AI-empowered on-brand content. My name is Yumiko. I'm the product marketer here at MediaValet, and I'm joined today by Jordan Wilson, who is also part of product marketing from Marq. Before we begin, I do have some housekeeping items to go over. This session is recorded, and we do have some time for questions. So if you do have any, feel free to drop them in the questions window, and we will get to them at the end of the session. For those of you who aren't familiar, Marq is actually the engine behind MediaValet's templating solution. So if you are a MediaValet customer using templating today, you are already familiar with Marq. And this session is going to be a treat as we are going to show you some new updates that are going to help you and your teams create on-brand content with the power of AI. If you are new to templating, maybe new to MediaValet or new to Marq, then you're also in for a treat. Jordan will be giving us a live demo in the latter part of today's session to give you a behind the scenes or behind the curtain look at templating. So welcome to all of you. And Jordan, thank you. It's great to have you join today. Really looking forward to the demo.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to I get excited about this topic, so excited to chat about it. Yeah.
You should be. It's a good one. So when Jordan and I were putting together this session today, we kept coming back to the same question, right? How do teams keep content on brand? And when AI continues to accelerate, not just in the speed at which it produces content, but also in its capabilities. It feels like every day we're finding new ways to use AI. But there is also that underlying trust factor that needs to be considered. It's something that we're both hearing from our customers and our friends out there in the industry. And today we're going to show you how we are answering that question. I'll wait for this animation to pop up here. Content in the era of AI versus the governance gap. So this slide really captures that core tension between the two, right? So on the left, you've got the reality of content today. AI tools have fundamentally changed what teams can produce. There's more content, more variants, more channels, more regions, more teams, but also smaller teams with tighter budgets than ever before. That's not a future state. That is what's happening right now for most of the organizations, I think, on this call. But here is the problem. The right side of this slide is what hasn't kept up. Assets that don't match current brand guidelines are still getting published. Approval processes designed for a slower world are creating bottlenecks rather than acting as quality checkpoints. Brand consistency is fragmented across regions and teams, and brand guidelines, if they exist at all, are sitting in a PDF somewhere that nobody is reading after onboarding. That is that governance gap. And the bigger the left side gets, the more painful we're seeing the right side becomes. So the good news is that this is a solvable problem, and it doesn't require us slowing down to fix it. That's what we're here to show you today. Speed and governance shouldn't be a trade-off. Okay, so I talked about in the previous slide, one side getting bigger than the other, right? This shouldn't be a trade-off. These two numbers on the screen here tell the story really clearly. 85% of marketing and creative professionals report pressure to deliver more with less and fewer resources. That's an overwhelmingly majority of the people in roles like the ones that most of you hold today. And then on the right side, 60% of enterprise marketing leaders identify content quality as a top risk of AI. So in the same breath that AI is being adopted to solve the speed problem, it's also creating a new quality and consistency problem. These two things are pulling directly against each other, and that's the trade-off that the title of this slide is calling out. Most teams feel like they have to choose, move fast and accept some brand drift, or slow down and maintain control. The mindset shift we want to leave with you today is that it doesn't have to be a trade-off. Speed and governance can coexist, but only if governance is built into the way content gets made, not added at the end as a final checkpoint, but as part of the creative workflow. So this is where I'm going to give the baton over to Jordan, and she's going to show you what this means for you.
Thank you, Yumiko. Yeah, so like Yumiko mentioned, I think a great thing about fabulous partners in the space like MediaValet is we share a lot in terms of like our philosophy and the problems we solve for brands, even in the context of AI. Um, Anyone who works in tech, even marketing, brand, AI is everywhere. And as we've built out certain AI tools at Marq, one of which I'll show you later today, is that we have to make sure that any AI tools that are baked into the Marq experience are brand safe by design. The human is always kept in the loop. So the human, as you'll see, will like set the brand rules and AI is always executing within them, not, creating AI slop or rogue content, um, or, replacing in any way that human judgment or taste. And then we've intentionally kind of injected and added AI throughout the Marq experience where it makes sense. So you can still get that speed without sacrifice. And so the tagline that we've been rallying around a lot at Marq this year has been scaling on-brand content with speed and control. And so every update we've made to our product, any additions we've added, all fall under that umbrella because we know how important it is for, as a fellow marketer, we know how important it is to brands and marketers and their companies to, get stuff out fast, but make sure it's still true to your brand everywhere it can be found, whether that is a social post, a flyer, or a product sheet. And so just as you go throughout this today, again, I know AI can mean a lot of things and it is everywhere. But hopefully we can kind of show you how it's been so purpose-built and intentionally built. And as a personal user of AI, I'm really excited about the things we're gonna show you. So thanks, Yumiko. And then on this slide, just before we dive into the actual demo, just wanted to talk through how the creative workflow looks with Marq and MediaValet in the mix. So I know there's some people on the call who are probably familiar with Marq and others who aren't. And so I'll kind of try to speak best to all of you, but if there's any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we can get them answered toward the end. But the way this works is MediaValet is your central source of truth for your approved assets. And then how that works with our integration is that then you can take those approved assets and pull them into Marq to create personalized on-brand pieces of content and to share that either back to MediaValet and your one source of truth jam or out into your, social channels, CRMs, et cetera, et cetera. So end to end, what this looks like is, your designers design where they design. So maybe that's Adobe InDesign, maybe that's Figma. You have all these beautifully on-brand pieces of content that are kind of sitting there, not getting used, or require a new design request every time someone needs a new piece of content. So we take those designs and those are imported into Marq and set up as templates. And so then what that looks like is each template is flexible and customizable to the portions of it that you want to stay as is and the portions of it that you want to be flexible. So, like for example, if you wanted, a logo, the logo on every two-pager to stay locked down, like I don't want anyone changing this. I don't want anyone adding some like weird shadow to this logo. Or using one from 7 years ago, right? Like you can just make sure like that's going to be locked down. But then maybe like the headline or the QR code, you're going to let users update. And so the lovely thing about this with our MediaValet partnership too is that it's a seamless single sign-on experience where if you're using MediaValet on that template, if I'm a user and I'm like, you know what, I need to replace this image because it's not actually for a clinic promotion, it's a reminder for, yearly checkups if I'm like a hospital or a clinic. And so I want to use some new imagery. I can pull approved imagery from MediaValet into that template. So you're just making sure that at every touch point, there are, certain approval guardrails already in place. So that way there's, a lot less friction, a lot less back and forth throughout your creative workflow. And then when they're personalizing this, as again, you'll see today, we do have some AI features that help speed that up a little more while still protecting your brand. And then, of course, again, you can save back to your Media Valet dam and then or you can share, put your beautiful creations out into the wild. But that's kind of a high level snapshot of where Marq and MediaValet fit together to really create this like creative workflow, this creative engine that's very seamless. And instead of, like Yumiko said earlier, having a random brand check at the end or tons of unnecessary back and forth throughout, and then things get stalled or lost or, don't turn out very pretty. We make sure that it all just works well for both the creative teams and then the everyday creators using the platforms. Anything you wanted to add here, Yumiko, before we dive into the demo?
Yeah, I guess it's for anyone new here, I'll just throw out some use cases that our clients who um, are using templating for. So Jordan mentioned like social media posts. The flyer example is on the slide here, but there is even like documents that we've seen in the templating solution from our clients' DAMs. There's also like things like business cards. Anytime there's multiple brands even or different regional teams, they require different versions. So lots of use cases for templating within the DAM. And the great thing about our templating solution too is that there's no context switching. So you stay in the DAM. It's a tab from the left-hand sidebar that you can click on. All right. So are you
Awesome.
ready to go into the demo?
Thanks. Let's do it. So what I'm going to show today is a portion of the Marq platform, a new functionality that we've built, brand safe AI, that acts as a little brand coach for your users. So we're calling this Brand Guardian. Yumiko, is my screen showing up all right?
Yeah,
Okay, awesome.
everybody can see it.
So we call it Brand Guardian. And so I'm going to walk through what it looks like on the back end. So in Marq, we have admins and users. The admins are kind of the folks with access to the control room who make sure everything is set up in the right way. AI is trained really deeply on the brand. And then I'll show you the Brand Guardian user experience for what that would look like as an end user using the Brand Guardian AI as they're creating. So this is where the magic happens. This is the back end. And so this is our brand guardian, and this is where you can take any Marq projects you already have, including brand guidelines, and you can upload them here. It'll go take you through a series of questions, and then it'll automatically, based on the examples you uploaded, pull all this information. It is also editable. If you'd rather go through and like tweak things or fill it out manually, you can absolutely do that. But how this AI backend works, how we've trained it on your brand, is you'll go through here and you can be like any AI, you want to be very prescriptive on do's and don'ts to make sure it doesn't go rogue at all. Um, but you can see here we have like very specific primary, secondary accent colors. There's base colors and then usage instructions. You'll see that throughout as well, but this is where you can kind of get into the do's and don'ts. So maybe you have some very specific do's and don'ts around gradients or how you want your accent colors used or where you don't want them used. And that is where you can add all these details here. The other nice thing about that, and we'll go through the typography and logo usage in a second, but the nice thing about these settings too is that there's a compliance setting where you can set how strictly each rule is followed. So you train it on, you give it the exact colors and like the hex codes. You give it its usage instructions. And then here you can say, you know what, like it's really, really important that our brand colors are always exact. And so you can make it super strict. Or if you're like, you know what, our logo needs to always be the same, but we can be a little flexible on the colors. You can adjust accordingly. And what this toggle affects, what you'll see in the user experience is that when they run a brand check on something they've created and it gives them a score, this toggle here is what affects the weight of the score. So if I have it super strict, having the exact colors will give them a higher score. If they don't have the exact colors, that'll really tank the score that you'll see. We recommend if you're unsure, just keeping it balanced. We find that works pretty well, but um, yeah, we can make it pretty customizable. And then it's the same thing for typography. So you can say like, this is what we typically like for our titles, our primary headers, secondary, um, you know, any call to action labels, and then again, the do's and don'ts super prescriptive, and then the compliance setting. Again, for the sake of today, we're going to keep it balanced, but this would then affect the weight of the typography score. Same with logo usage. Here are some usage instructions. The logos would be uploaded into your brand kits. And then tone and voice, which is one of my favorite features because I think that really helps capture some nuances and again, just really move away from any generic AI slop or AI language. And so this is where you can give it tone, personality traits, do's and don'ts. And then images. You can, just make sure which if you're working with a DAM like MediaValet and you're connecting it with Marq, this tends to be a little less of an issue since they're already pulling only from approved images, but you can have this checker in here as well and keep it balanced. And then again, I know some people are more familiar with Marq than others, but you can decide the brand guardian, and we're going to bop over to the user group in a second. You can decide who would have access to this or not. That's the other nice thing that I really appreciate about Marq's AI ethos and making sure it works for brands is, should you want to use some of these AI features, you can decide like, yeah, there's certain people on my team, maybe I'll have them use this, maybe some others who don't. And as we'll talk about, you can still always make sure to have approvals in place. So that's what the admin backend setup looks like for Brand Guardian. And now I'm going to show you the user experience. Unless Yumiko, was there anything else you wanted to call out here or touch on?
I was just going to say, I really like that compliance setting. Having that flexibility, I think, is nice to have for sure.
Super nice. Thank you.
Mhm.
Awesome. So then if I'm a user and I'm working in Marq, I what the brand guardian will look like for me is a check brand alignment up in the upper right hand corner. Today, for the sake of time, what we'll just show you is a quote unquote good example and a bad example. So a very on brand example and a not so on brand example. Lucky you guys, you got a little sneak peek at a refreshed brand for Marq. So this is what our you know, older classic brand looks like. This is what our brand refresh will look like. So you can kind of see the differences there. And then if I'm a user, I come in here, I'm using this template, I make some edits, and as you can see, it's really not in compliance with the new brand. This is our old brand. And before I either send it for approval or send it to print, depending on how my admin has set up approval workflows, I can check the brand alignment. So when I click this, all of that backend information we saw earlier is working almost like little mini agents that we've set up. And so it's going through and checking all the colors here against the color do's and don'ts. It's checking all the font against the typography do's and don'ts. It's checking imagery, it's checking, the layout. And so then when it's done, it'll give me a score. And if the score is low, it'll give me some suggestions of things I can tweak before I send it to print or approval. Again, depending on how my leader has set up the approval process. Um, so this one, because we've trained it on our newer branding, it will show in a few moments a bit of a lower score here. But then the nice thing about it is instead of it just being a lower score, sorry, try again, there's very specific tweaks that it suggests for the user to make. And so I think a big benefit here for users is that I can just once more really, well, yeah, it shouldn't have said 100%, but let's pretend that it said 30%, as it did right before this call, I promise. It will have then down here little notes where it says, okay, update the color this color. I will click that, it'll automatically update the color. Or there will be another little note that says update, the font. I'll click it, it'll update the font. And then again, depending on how my admin has set it up, I will click this, send it for approval if that's required, or I can just send it straight to print if, you can set it so like for example, if I get like a 90+%, you're like, I don't need to see it. You can ship it. We can send that to print, we can post to social, etc. Otherwise, if someone gets a low score, doesn't know, okay, we'll just all pretend that that worked. If it gets a low score, they need to send it in for approval. You can set that up. And then, yeah, you can also, set it up so certain users can use it for certain things. If you don't want them to use it for others, that's totally fine. And then this is kind of the good example. So if I use this, I make a few tweaks. It's in the new branding. It's looking really sleek. But I just want to do this check before I send it to my boss. It'll go through and again, do that all again based on the typography, based on the fonts, based on the colors. Um, it's a really nifty tool. And we've been using it internally, especially as we've been starting this shift toward a new brand, and it's been working really well. 90 is actually a pretty good score. So as you can see here, this is actually good to see though. There are a few level up moves it gives me. So if I click on this, it's like, okay, this typography at the bottom maybe isn't the most accurate based on your admin trained brand guidelines. Then I can click that. It'll give it an update, apply it, et cetera, et cetera. So, and you can always revert to original and then, that all looks good. If my admin says, 90+% is great, you can ship it, then I could go ahead, share, print, etc. If for some reason they still wanted to require approval, which is totally fine, and we have customers doing both, then there would just be a little send for approval box up here. Yumiko, anything else you wanted to add regarding the demo?
Yeah, I can be your witness as when we did our practice run, it did come with a lower score than 100. Um, and it never fails, right? But yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, it's really cool, and I like how you can see it working on the side, similar to like how LLM agents are working these days. You can see sort of its thinking process, and I like the tips that it gives you afterward.
Yeah. Super
Uh,
actionable. Yeah, it's been great.
Thanks so much. All right, so back to my slide here. Jen, are you able to finish
Yeah.
us off here before we get into questions?
Yep. So just some key takeaways before we dive into questions is, as we talked about before, we both speak with marketers and brand leaders every day, and even DAM managers. Like I think this is something I think you all really appreciate having very efficient systems, having those single sources of truth, and making sure to keep all of that protected, even in the era of AI. So, TLDR, AI may be here, it may not be going anywhere. It's accelerating content, it's creating a ton more slop. But I feel very lucky to work somewhere like Marq, where we're building very intentional AI, and to work with partners like MediaValet, who are similarly, you know, having AI baked into the process where it makes sense for the sake of governance, but always keeping those humans in the loop and everything very brand safe. And so again, just to recap, what I showed you today is brand trained AI. And what that looks like is, pulling in assets from MediaValet, using pre-approved templates that then even if I edit as a user, I can either use that brand check to then send it for approval or use the brand check, ship the content. So it just really makes that content engine scale really nicely. And so again, if you're familiar with Marq, we integrate with MediaValet, so then you can take your assets that are stored in the DAM and you can really activate them into on-brand templates. And then again, anything AI related, we make sure is very brand safe, human in the loop, so you all can hopefully rest a little easier that your brands are being protected regardless of who's creating content. So thank you guys so much. I've really appreciated getting the chance to show you that. And yeah, now I think we're ready for questions.
Yes, we've got one here. Um, can guardian be applied to multiple brand kits?
Yes, Brand Guardian can be applied to multiple brand kits. I can even just pull up, let me share this. So if I have multiple brand kits in the back end, I can make sure, like, so, Aquaterra pools, that's going to be different. Obviously, this is a demo account, so there's a million brands. But if you look through, each brand is set up based on that brand. So that way, depending on if my users are using a particular brand kit, a particular set of branded templates, yes, it can handle multiple brands and you can manage them all in the same backend.
Okay, and then I think related, it says, can brand guardian be set up so it assists specific users?
Yes, it can. Currently, it's set up for certain user groups, which has worked pretty well for Marq customers. If you need anything more granular than that, I would talk to your MediaValet or Marq rep, and they can see, what's available now or what's coming in the pipeline to help set expectations. But yeah, for now, you can enable it for certain user groups.
Okay, and I think, Jordan, you touched on this in the demo. You mentioned that there's a send for approval button if it's been set up by the admin. But the question here is, can we set up Brand Guardian so that users can just go straight to publishing without approvals?
Yes, Brand Guardian, the nice thing about it is it can be while it's there to protect your brand and be, very bullish about that, it is very flexible in terms of how you fit it into your workflow and publishing workflow. So, yes, short answer, you can set up Brand Guardian so that users can just go straight to publishing without approvals. If you want to set a threshold there, you can. So you can say, they have to get a 90 plus for them to just publish it. Um, but again, it's super, super flexible.
Awesome. And there's a question here. It says, in Marq, after someone creates a new flyer, if it's an InDesign file, can that design file be downloaded and saved? I think
Go ahead.
I can answer that from the DAM side. So yes, you can packaged in design files can be uploaded into the DAM. But Jordan, maybe can you answer that from the templating side?
Yeah, I'm going to triple check and maybe Ian, you can, touch base with the person who asked this, but I'm pretty sure currently with exporting, um, let me look. Yeah, I don't think InDesign is like downloading it into InDesign, an InDesign file is standard practice. But I wouldn't be surprised if we've done that functionality for people before. So before I promise anything, let me double check and Ian can be in touch about that.
Yeah, if you are a MediaValet customer, you can download InDesign files and then re-upload them into the DAM. That I know for sure. Um, There was a question earlier. I guess there, some of the attendees here are unfamiliar with Marq. So I believe Ian helped answer that question. But yes, Marq is the engine behind our templating tool. So if you see templates on the left sidebar there, then you have access to templating and also Brand Guardian. So feel free to go in there and test it out. But if you have any questions, of course, reach out to your MediaValet rep and they will be able to answer your questions there. All right. I think that is all the questions that we've seen come through. Right. All right, I believe, I mean, that's the end of our session. We are going to be sending out the recording, so if you'd like to rewatch the demo, please do so. I want to thank you, Jordan, for joining us today. It was really cool to see and seeing all the new AI-powered updates that are coming through on both the DAM side and the Marq side. So thank you so much for your time, everybody, and enjoy the rest of DAM week.
Happy to share. Thanks, guys. See ya.